Station. Hi guys, it's Ben here from T-Rex Space Station. How's everyone doing? This is going to be a video response to Metropolis' 5 questions video. And I know this is a little bit belated, but I saw the answers doing the rounds on YouTube and thought, well, why not put my answers in even though it is a little bit late. I thought they were really good questions actually, and I'll post a link to the original video in the description below. So question number 1 then is, what RPG character class would you choose to be in real life? Now, most of the time when I'm playing role-playing games, I tend to choose the tank type classes, so just the fighters or, you know, the Nord race if you're playing Skyrim, and, you know, just basically use melee combat, usually axe and shield or sword and shield, and just basically tank everything and destroy it with huge strength and defense stats. But when I started playing Diablo 3, I quite got into using the ranged type classes. Now, Diablo 3 has a class called the Demon Hunter, which is essentially a kind of distance or ranged attack class which has other things that you would attribute to a hunter, like traps and various animals or pets or creatures that you could use to help you, and also about sort of laying turrets and things. So not kind of a direct attack one that would be absorbing damage, but one that kind of flits around the screen kiting and dealing out massive amounts of range damage. And I think if I was choosing a class for real life, I would probably go with a Demon Hunter or another range type class, you know, like an Archer or something. Because in that circumstance, you're still able to deliver a great deal of force and a lot of damage, but also you're able to avoid getting hit and stay out of the fray. Now, call me a coward, but I think it's best to be able to deal your damage from afar. In real life, I can't see myself wanting to be at the front, taking all the blows and basically tanking for everybody else. I'd much prefer to be able to make a very quick escape should things get hairy, and you know, use my Demon Hunter abilities to just sort of roll off into the distance or lay loads of traps. One thing that I've never really enjoyed is playing much as mage classes. That's a class that just doesn't appeal to me that much. I don't know why it is. I think it's because they often pair like very weak physical attributes with very strong levels of magic attacks, and it's kind of the class that you have to struggle with for the first earlier levels because it's very easy to die, and then they become incredibly powerful later on. For some reason I've always found that a bit frustrating. Like, I just want to have an easy time straight away and be able to just destroy things easily rather than be really frail and have to put a lot of effort into surviving before I eventually become powerful. But I don't know, that's just me, and a lot of my friends seem to really love the mage classes. Next question then is, you're competing against your friend in an arcade game. Which is more important to you, obtaining the highest score or progressing further? Now, I don't really have a huge competitive streak. I mean, in certain games I do. I always like to compete if I'm playing, you know, Quake 2 or if I'm playing Mario Kart. Like, for some reason those are games where I don't really want to lose, but that's more on the home consoles. I think the thing with arcades is that often when I was younger I would feel like they were very expensive and specifically designed to make you have to put more and more coins in to get some longevity. And what I didn't like was feeling that my experience was really limited because the games were too hard and you would die too quickly. So if I was playing in an arcade with somebody else and competing, I would definitely prefer to last longer than to beat them but end up having a shorter experience. For me, it's all about having the most time on the machine to enjoy the actual gameplay and the experience of playing in the arcade. Very rarely would I allow a sort of a competitive edge to hamper the longevity of the game or to be more prioritized than actually how long we were playing and how much fun we were having. I actually very rarely would play a player versus player arcade game. I'm not really into beat 'em ups like Street Fighter, etc. And I know those are a really big draw for certain people. Like, those are some of the best arcade games around, but for me it's not really been a thing. So I'd actually much more likely to be playing a cooperative arcade game anyway. You know, one like Gauntlet or something where you're all kind of in a party together, struggling to survive and having teamwork. For me, that's a much more interesting and valued experience to have, but you know, each to their own. Number 3 then, if you had the opportunity to publish your own video game, what would it be? This is a great question, and it's one that I've thought about in the past and actually touched on before. I think for me it would be an old school point and click adventure game. Now, some of the old LucasArts point and click adventure games and the Sierra games like Leisure Suit Larry, you know, and other games like Day of the Tentacle, were really some of my earliest video gaming experiences. and they really introduced me to complex plots, to puzzles, to humour in video games, and I hold those very dearly. I think my personality is quite closely matched to those types of games. You know, they present an intellectual challenge you have to think your way through, but they also tend to be quite silly and full of wit and stupid humour, and that's kind of what I'm like, you know. I like to have a little bit of immaturity and joking in my games. And so I actually, when I was younger, I used to use Adventure Game Studio a lot, which is free software that allows you to design your own point and click games. And actually, I'm pretty good at that now. I think that I actually have the skills to make a game on that. It isn't the technical limitations that are holding me back. It's more just having the time and having the idea. And a big part of it is the graphics. Now, I think that I could probably design a good story, a good puzzle system, and a good outline for a game, but it's filling in all of the graphics and all of the details and getting it fleshed out that I would find hard. There are some really impressive one-man game designing teams, but for me, I think that I would have to call in other people, especially when it comes to the graphics, because I'm just not that good at that. You know, often adventure games will on AGS will have quite good narratives and good puzzles, and then the person just won't be able to do the graphics and will just skimp on that. Some of my favourite ones, like Larry Vale's Traffic Cop, had really terrible design, and I loved that. You know, the crappy graphics that were made in Paint were part of the charm to me. But I think if you're actually going to make something seriously, I'd need to add somebody else in. But yeah, it would certainly be a point-and-click adventure game. I already had an idea for one, and I made it on my last computer, so a few test screens, and unfortunately I might have lost that, but I need to try and recover the data from my hard drive. Maybe one day I'll get round to it, and if anyone's up for it, if anyone's good at graphics or animation, let me know. I think I'd be going for an old school style, two-dimensional, hand-drawn or pixel art type art style, which is really my favourite art style. If you look at Day of the Tentacle, to me that game is a masterpiece in character design and animation, and it just looks beautiful even to this day. But actually on the Steam Summer Sale, I've been playing the remastered version of Grim Fandango, which is a superb LucasArts game that came out back in the 90s, I think around 98 or so. And again, it's just really reinstating that love that I have for those kind of adventure games. There's so much humour in there, there's a lot of head scratching. It borders on being frustrating at times, but the hard part with these games is getting the difficulty curve just right so that it keeps you challenged and keeps you playing, but doesn't make you pull your hair out and just end up rage quitting. So yeah, it's not an easy genre of game to make by any stretch of the imagination, but it's one where the technical aspect isn't that off-putting. It's more about what you can design, what you can write, that's the difficulty in making those games. Okay, question number 4. What's your favourite weapon in a game? This is a great question, and for me I would have to pick the railgun from Quake 3. Or actually it's in Quake 2 as well, isn't it? For me, that's just the weapon that I loved to use when I was playing online multiplayer games, and I used to love an Instagib mod on Quake 3 where you would use the railgun and basically one hit would kill them. And what I liked about it was that it was a weapon that encouraged careful timing and accuracy rather than, say, a rocket launcher where you can kind of fire it and spam it and hit the walls and people will take collateral damage. No, the railgun, you have to be really precise. And I liked that it encouraged the development of skill and hand-eye coordination to use it. You know, you had to really be on your game in those matches, constantly avoiding and strafing and jumping, trying to predict where the enemy would go, and then firing the railgun and taking them down. And it was just such a satisfying weapon to use in the online Quake games, and one that I still try to choose when I'm playing, say, on Quake 2 on the N64. It's one that can be hard to play if other people can spam you with hyper blasters, etc. So if you've got other weapons available, it really can be challenging because you really have to not miss or you'll end up dying. But I just love that risk and reward that you have of it, and it's really satisfying when you manage to take someone down with a perfect railgun shot and see them explode into giblets. So that's my all-time favourite weapon. I mean, the super shotgun in Doom would come close because it's just a big stocky gun that has a low firing rate but just splatters everything into, you know, tiny little bits of mush. Lovely. And then number 5, do you take the hero or villain path in video games? Another very interesting question. I actually really like the idea of taking the villain path, but when I do it, I tend to feel really guilty and then feel sort of slightly sad that I did it and want to go back to being good. So the majority of the time I actually choose the good path, because I just feel guilty and feel like I'm doing something that's outside of my character and I don't like it, and I get a little bit scared and back off when I see the consequences of my actions, which is a bit of a wuss way to play, isn't it? I remember when I played Black and White, I did go down the villain path, the evil path for a while, and it was actually quite cool seeing your creature develop and become evil and learn after you and kill people and instill fear. But again, I had that guilt factor start creeping in and started to regret what I was doing. The other thing I would say is that often I feel like the villain path is neglected in terms of the detail in games, and you still don't have a cohesive evil side. Sometimes you can do a few evil actions, but you still end up acting in a way that isn't fitting with your character's personality, in that you end up doing good overall for the development of the plot or for whatever it is that you have to do in the game. I would really like to see the evil path in games being developed more to make it feel more realistic and more developed and characterized. And if that was the case, if I felt like I was going to get a proper evil experience, I would probably choose it a bit more. But you know, as it is at the moment, I think that it tends to be the games are designed for you to be good, and then the evil paths are just sort of tagged on for you to do a little bit here and there and make some bad choices. But very rarely does it feel like you're actually properly being evil. The time when I most enjoyed being evil was when I was playing Oblivion, and you could join that secret underground society. After you murder someone, you get a secret invitation, and you rise your way up through the ranks and end up getting involved in all sorts of evil stuff. And it felt really cool to be part of this secret society that was doing evil things and murdering people and bringing down the kingdom and all its hierarchy from underground. And there was some like weird blood pacts and things, and eventually you end up being able to communicate with some sort of undead god or something, and it was really cool. And that was one of the few times where I felt that the evil path was actually done well and cohesively and realistically and believably, and I really had a lot of fun doing that. So yeah, mostly I choose good. When it's actually appropriate and properly planned out and I feel like it's developing well, then I will choose evil to explore that side of things and find it really interesting to do so. So yeah, 5 great questions. It'd be really great to hear some of your video responses to Metropolis' question. I'll post a link in the description below. Take care guys, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye!